Hi, I'm Carol Lofhagen. This is my spring story, and it takes place in my family. Yes, my oldest son, Gordon, has been struggling for several years with addiction problems, and it's culminated into what happened on January 4th in 2018. The call came on the 4th while I was at work, and he was in an emergency department in British Columbia, suicidal, and he had hit rock bottom. He was homeless,
Sure.
jobless. Him and his girlfriend had broken up. She couldn't handle the stress of the situation and what he had put her through for the previous year. And so he had nothing.
Yeah.
And he had long since walked away from his faith, but he is a born again believer. Normally, I would have jumped right in and I would have headed out west and owned every bit of this stressful situation, and I couldn't because I had been going through a year and a half of some health issues, and I knew I couldn't. I knew I wasn't able to, and I think that's exactly where God wanted me, because He had other plans for Gordon, and He brought different people and situations into his life that were amazing. While he was on the inpatient mental health unit, a Christian friend of his came back into his life and walked alongside him, was there for him. And when Gordon was discharged, he was able to live with this friend, and his parents took him in, fed him, looked after him, and he started going to Alcoholics Anonymous with this friend, Andrew. And Andrew had called me also, and we had a chat, and that's how I found out he was a Christian, and I was just amazed at the story.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that all of them would take hours to talk about.
Yeah.
So it just gave me a great peace, knowing that I could see God at work.
Yeah.
And it was difficult that I wasn't there, and I felt like my hands were tied. I just felt, for me, it was just very difficult.
Sure.
Not to have my hand in anything, but that's what God wanted.
Yeah.
And then Gordon was going to these meetings with Andrew and living with his family. He was well looked after, and he had been in a outpatient program with Edgewood and in discussions with a counselor. And I also spoke to this counselor on the phone by March, looking at what the options were for Gordon. Their program's very expensive. It's a private addictions facility in Nanaimo, and we couldn't afford it. A 6-week inpatient part was $27,000, and then the extended care is more money. And so I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I got off the phone with Patrick, his counselor at Edgewood. And within a half hour, Gordon called me and said that he had received a bursary. And it was like, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And it's like, only God can provide that. And I was like, wow. I don't know why I'm amazed, because God always comes through and He gives you more than you could ever ask for. So He started the inpatient program in Nanaimo by middle of June of this year, and did the inpatient portion, did the extended care portion, and now he's graduated from his program successfully. He's put all the hard work in that he needed to do, and he's going to be moving into a sober house in Nanaimo for several months.
Yeah.
He has to pay a small amount of rent for that. But all in all, God just gave above and beyond. The program, all in the end, all told, is around $50,000.
Wow.
That we could never, ever have, my husband and I could not provide.
Yeah.
So now, you look at the situation and it's 360 degrees. He's trying to reestablish that relationship with his girlfriend. They're working through their issues. He has a full-time job. He's sober. It's amazing. I recognize that there's challenges ahead. This story isn't over, but I'm just thankful for the many, many blessings.
Sure.
Well, I recognize in this, Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And we have to be aware of that on a daily basis, of what he's trying to do in our life. But you have to walk with God every day, very closely. It's the only way. And it's the only way Gordon's going to progress. The biggest news, the most positive thing I've heard from him is that he said to me on the phone, he said, "Mom, you'll be happy to know my faith is coming back." And in subsequent calls, he said, "I am feeling peace for the first time in a long time. I feel much better." There's always a little that fear in the background of this isn't over. He has many challenges ahead. When your child is suicidal, you know that down the road, will he go backwards? You know, it's always kind of in the back of your mind, but you have no control over that, and I know that God's in control. And so I think as my faith has deepened over the years, and especially through this, that I trust God more to be in control, and I'm not in control. Because when we try and take control in life, you're exhausted. And the other verse that came to mind was the Matthew 11:28-30, where his yoke, his light, he carries our burdens for him. Well, I think because this has been going on, like this just didn't happen overnight. It's been years in the making. And addictions don't discriminate. They affect all walks of life. And I mean, if you met Gordon, you might not even think that he would be addicted to drugs and alcohol. And they weren't just simple drugs that he was getting into. In fact, his counselor said that he was lucky to be alive. And there's God's grace again.
Amazing.
And so I don't even think I realized how far it had gone. So it overwhelmed you. When you realize after the fact, you look back now at the whole situation, and you're just amazed at what God has done. Well, even in the call on the 4th, I mean, you do have that sensation that comes over you of anxiety a bit. I've been through some traumas in life that you feel like the carpet has been pulled out, but each time, again, with that deepening of your faith, it's easier to handle it because you immediately go into prayer mode where you're like, God, you're in this and I need help. And it's like those fast arrow prayers up to God in that moment, because you're praying immediately, and it does give you peace. And so you're able to handle it. And to trust God even when you think that he's not there, or that even when things get at their very worst, to keep trusting and to keep in the Word and to keep praying and surround yourself with people who will hold you up in prayer. And that is what I'm thankful for. Also, I'm thankful for our small group that we're in, that Mark and I are in, and for SCMC, and for you, Pastor Dave, because I appreciate your support and prayers and your wisdom. So SCMC is an awesome place to be. In Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, not to hurt you or to harm you, but to give you hope and a future.